All right, so just to show you on the wrong screen over here, I wanted to show you the fiber on here real quick. So we're going to select the tester and we'll move that over. So what I did was I put in a SFP for our fiber right here. I've got my fiber connected, and in this case I'm on VLAN 14. So if we go over and we take a look at our test results, it shows that we connected at 1 gig full duplex and that we see negative 7.12 decibel meters. So this gives us an idea of what our signal strength is, and it tells us we're on VLAN 14. Now, just as a little demonstration here, these little things are kind of nasty. They're attenuators, and we use them to, create failures in here. So I just want to show you how we can tell if we see loss in there. So I'm going to unplug my fiber, and I'm going to take my little attenuator here, and I'm going to plug these into my SFP. Now these are 10 dB attenuators. Now they're single mode, so they don't always give us exactly 10 dB, but let's take a look and see what our test results are. And the big thing with these is to show that we can measure that. So right there, we show that we're now at 18.5 decibel meters, which is really right on the edge of what's acceptable. So if we saw a loss like that, then that's a case where we want to go back and we want to inspect and clean the fiber. Now, one of the things that this does support is the ability to go in and inspect the end of the fiber. And you can go out and you can purchase a camera that will connect to the USB port. So if I came in here and I connected this inspection camera so I've got this camera right here, and this is a microscope that I can connect to the OneTouch AT. And if we go into Tools and we scroll up, and we scroll down here to our fiber inspector, and I unplug this, and I plug this into the end of the fiber, and boy, that picture through the VNC viewer does not come through very good. I apologize for that. But what we're looking at in this case, let's flip this around, is this is showing us a picture of the end face of that fiber. So in this case, when I look at the end face of that fiber, I can focus in on that. And I can see that I've got some dirt on the end of that. And I know that this screen does not show that very well, but that's a piece of dirt right there. So in this case, I could come in, I could go in, I could clean my fiber, and I could come back and reinspect it. Okay, that end is the end where I've got light coming through. I'll reinspect this end, and my dirt's gone. So you can kind of see on that picture where we can see the core of the fiber. So we'll plug that back in. We'll go back to home. We'll rerun our test. We'll just see if we have any difference in our signal strength after cleaning that. But we are going through the attenuators. Well, there we're at neg 18. That's still pretty high. So I would want to go back and find out, what's going on with this fiber. The fact is, our test still works. But this is where we can connect this up and use it to connect to fiber as well. All right. So let's switch back to me. There we go. Let's talk about our Wi-Fi performance test. So in this case, we passed all of our tests there. I'm going to disconnect my fiber, pull out my attenuators, And I'm going to hook back up my copper connection here. And before we continue on with that, we are going to come over here. We're going to enable wireless. And we've got our connection enabled. All right. So let's talk about what we can do with wireless. And one of the questions that came in was, instead of using the DSCP markings for QoS, could we use our COS markings? Now, if I came in and I go to my tools and I go to wired and I go to my VLAN tag, I can set my VLAN tag. And not only can I set my VLAN tag, but I can set my priority in here. So I can change those priority bits in my VLAN tag. So if we're using VLANs and we want to set the priority at layer 2, we can do that. So you can, and you could use both. You could do DSCP and you could set your cost of service bits at layer 2 in your 802.1q VLAN tag. Since we're no longer plugged into a tag connection, I'm going to turn off VLAN tagging. That will save me from the embarrassment of it not working when we go in and show it. All right. So let's talk about Wi-Fi performance. So our Wi-Fi performance test is going to test our performance over our Wi-Fi connection. So we looked at our 1 gig wired performance test. Now let's take a look at our wireless performance test. So in this case, we have 3 options. We can use this OneTouch, we can use a peer, or we can use a reflector. So here's the cool thing. If you want to do a wireless performance test and you don't have another OneTouch, you don't have a LinkRunner AT2000, well, you should go out and get them. But if you're not going to go out and get them, then the cool thing is we can use the OneTouch AT on the wired side as the reflector through the wireless side. So we're going to do that in this case. So in this case, we're going to select this OneTouch. So what will happen is the OneTouch will send the traffic out the wireless connection through the network back into the wired port, then back through the wireless connection. So it's a pretty cool feature. So let's set that up. So I'm going to click and hold, and we're going to do a Wi-Fi performance test. So we're going to set the endpoint to be this OneTouch. Now I could set it to be my LinkRunner, I could set it to be the other OneTouch. In this case, it's going to be this OneTouch. We'll call it Wi-Fi performance. Target rate. You know what? We're connected at 802.11 AC. I want to do 50 meg in each direction. I don't think that's unreasonable. We're going to give it a little more flexibility on packet loss. I'm going to let it have up to 1% packet loss. We're going to run this test for 10 seconds. And you know what? For this one, let's see. Yeah, we'll leave our frame size at 1024. And here's where we could set our DSCP value if we wanted to change that, and our port number. So we're going to go, we've got that test set up. There's our Wi-Fi performance. Let's hit test. So the OneTouch AT is going to establish a connection on the wireless side. It's going to establish a connection on the wired side. It's going to run all of our tests down below there. Once it's done with that, it's going to get to the Wi-Fi performance test. At that point, it's going to send traffic out here to our Netgear 77-5, so our office Netgear. And so here we go. This is exciting. I'm going to start running that test up here. And we're going to measure what the performance of our wireless connection is. And if we were to look at the top of our OneTouch right now, we see that our wireless light is blinking, we see our wired light is blinking, and we see our test results came up there. So let's go back and take a look at our Wi-Fi performance test. In this case, our target rate was 50 megabits per second. Our data throughput the data throughput rate was 49.8, 49.9. We sent 61,000 frames. Shows us how many we got back, shows us how many we lost, shows us what our loss rate was. Shows us our latency, our jitter, our out of sequence, our ping. And it tells us that right here, this is what we're connected to. Here's our channel. Our average transmit rate was 660 megabits per second. And it shows us the percent of retries and our average 802.11 utilization. So we were able to use this to say that I could get 50 megabits per second full duplex. Normally, we would not do full duplex. Normally, I would send data in one direction and get like acknowledgments and read requests in the other direction. So normally we don't send data at full rate both directions, but we could get it. So if somebody asked me, could I do HD video over this wireless connection? We can. Now I need to be a little careful testing that particular connection because that's the same wireless connection I'm using for my video feed in this presentation. So I don't want to overload that because I don't want to screw up our presentation here. So this gives us a way that we can go in and we can do some testing on our wireless network to find out what's going on. All right. So let me just check something here. Somebody said they can't see the webcam. So I'm just going to turn that off and turn that back on just to make sure that that's up and working okay. We'll see if that made any difference there. All right. So this starts giving us a picture of what we've going on there, what we've got going on there. Now it could be that the webcam got hit by me running all that data through our wireless network as well. So that's where we kind of have to be careful of what we do to the wireless network. The same holds true for wired performance. This will send traffic at full line rate, full gig. So you can overload your network quite easily by doing that. So I'm going to delete that test just so I don't accidentally run it, cause any problems with our presentation. So there's our test result. So module number 4 are reports. So you've gone through, you've done this testing. Now we want to be able to do some reporting on that testing. So how do we do that? Well, touching the button where it says OneTouch AT or OneTouch AT G3 or OneTouch AT 10 gig, depending on which one you have, this is where we can start getting into our reports. So we can either save what's on our screen or we can save the report. So in this case, here's the report name. Now we can click on that, we can give it a descriptive name for the report we're saving. I recommend that because trying to remember that name isn't going to help you much. Okay. Now we can say save it locally or upload it to Link Live, and we'll log into Link Live in just a minute. So we can give it a name, we can select the format, we can save it locally or upload it, and we can select which tests are going to be saved. So here's the thing, when it comes to saving it, we can say, do we want to save it as a PDF? Do we want to put it in XML format? Or do we want to save both? The XML format is really nice because it saves it as a XML file, which we can then open with Excel. So let's go ahead and give this a shot, all right? So we're going to come over here and we're going to save the results we have from this test. So we're going to say save report. And we're going to call this 1T June 1. And we're going to save it both as a PDF and an XML. We're not going to upload it. And we're going to go ahead and we are going to save everything. So I'm going to hit save. So when I hit save, it's going to bring up this screen. It's going to tell us, hey, I'm building this test report. So it's going to collect our auto test information, our wired summary, our wired host details. So while it's doing that, switch my camera back here. When we save the PDF report, we've gone out and discovered our network. We can end up creating quite a few pages of report out there. So we'll let that run. We're up to 32 pages. "48 pages. Now, while that is saving that, we are going to close this connection to the OneTouch. We'll go ahead and close this one too. Now, I'm going to bring up Link Live. Now, there is a new version, as it says on here, there's a new version of Link Live out here. So we can go out and try the new version. Let's go ahead and click on that. We're going to go to the new one. Now, Link Live is our web interface. It's the cloud-based service where we can upload. Let's see, make sure I remember. Oh, good. Got the right password. This is a free service that we can use in combination with these tools. So if I came in here and I said, show me the different units I have out here. Here are the different tools I have. Okay. And right here, I can remote into it. So you saw me using VNC to remote into that before. I am now remoted into my OneTouch AT through the cloud interface. This means I could ship this OneTouch AT anywhere where it can get out to the internet. And one important note, it does support proxy connections, so we can use a proxy server to get out. But if we set it up properly, and I'll show you the settings in there, we can remote out through a network connection. We can connect into our OneTouch. So now I can drive that OneTouch from here. If I go to remote files, it brings up my directory of files. I can click on internal. I can click on reports. And here are the reports that I've saved in there. Okay. Oh, that was screens. There we go. There's our reports, and there is our OneTouch June PDF. So if I click on that, it's going to download that PDF file. We can bring that up, and here's the PDF file that contains all 84 pages of test results. Here's all my auto test results. Here's all my discovery information. Here's my wireless connection log, showing me how I connected wirelessly. Okay. Now let's see. So does the connection have to be copper, or can it be managed over Wi-Fi? So we can connect the management port of the OneTouch via Wi-Fi. And I forgot to grab that little Wi-Fi adapter. I'll grab it at the next break and I'll show it to you. It is, I think in this case, it is an Asus N10 wireless adapter, but we'll grab it and I'll show it to you. In fact, we'll even set it up. Okay. So does the OneTouch itself make a connection to Link Live, which can then be reused for remote access? Yes. So the connection is initiated by the OneTouch. So if we turn on remote access on there, it will initiate the connection to Link Live, so then we can connect through to it. Okay. So let's come back here. We're going to close that PDF. We're going to come back here, and I'm going to click on the XML document. Oh. So it's now starting a VM on my machine. That's not exactly what I wanted to have happen. So we're going to close that VM because I don't want to compete with that for CPU. So let's do this. We're going to open Excel. All right. I know it's hard to see here. This is the Excel document that was, or the XML that was created. So here are our user tests. There are our test results. There's our Wi-Fi infrastructure information, wired infrastructure, network services, performance. So we see we have tabs along the bottom. These test results were saved locally to the OneTouch, and we were able to access those files. The fact that this OneTouch is sitting right next to me is immaterial in this case. If this was sitting hundreds of miles away, or I were to have access to one of your OneTouches across the Atlantic Ocean, then I would be able to remote in there and connect to that and get this report. So this is the really cool thing with being able, we're going to go ahead and close Excel, with being able to remote into that, is that by being able to remote into that OneTouch using this interface, I can either remote control it, configure my tests, or I can come in here, and you notice that there is an upload. So let's say that you had OneTouches located throughout your organization. Let's see, where did my remote files go? I could come in and I could upload information such as 802.1x authentication certificates. I could upload profiles. So I could build a profile here and upload it to a OneTouch AT elsewhere. Okay. So being able to remote control this through Link Live, very handy feature. Okay. And what's really nice is that when we start going through and configuring Link Live to allow people to access, you could allow me access to your OneTouch. So you could say, Mike, hey, can you help us look at this issue? I could go in and connect to your OneTouch, and you have 100% control over when I have access to that. Very, very cool things that we can do in there. I'm going to come back up here to my reports. And let's go back. And I'm going to VNC back into my OneTouch here. We'll window that. Grab our VNC connection. We'll log in. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to save this report. And we're going to say save the report. And you know what? We are going to reduce the report size by turning off all this detail information about the host. And I guess I could have clicked clear all. And we're going to uncheck that. All I want to do is save my auto test settings right here. So, and we're going to upload this test to Link Live. And I'm going to hit save. So now when I click save, what it's going to do is it's going to generate the report. And when it's done generating the report, it will upload this report. Now, as I mentioned, we can configure this to go through a proxy server. So we could set it up to be able to go out and connect to that Link Live through a proxy if we wanted. But now we come back here and we'll give it a sec to upload that test. And let's see. Also, I need to check and make sure it did not put that in another folder. Now let's take a look at our reports. There we go. All right, so here's OneTouch, and here's our PDF, and it says 3:36 a.m. Yeah, that's about right. So if I click on that, there's the report that we just saved. So it shows our front screen, shows our tests, and this saved 20 pages of report information about what we collected. So we knocked quite a few pages off. We knocked 64 pages off by not saving all of our discovery information. But this is a case where it uploaded that. Now let's come back to our tester. We'll make that a little bit bigger so it's easy to see. So let's see what we did to set that up. Well, if we come down here to our Link Live tools, what's the process for using Link Live? First off, we need to set up a Link Live account. Link Live is free. Then we need to go in and claim the unit. So in this case, it's already claimed. But if I clicked on claim, well, it's already claimed. But what we would be able to do is we could come back here to Link Live, and I could say units, and let's see, we'll close that. New interface. So I could go to claim a unit. I could say I want to claim my OneTouch AT. So it says connect to an active network using the management port. Cool. Then I could go to tools. I could select claim unit. And now I put in the last 6 digits of my MAC address. When I do that, Link Live will start listening for packets from that unit. At that point, we would go in and hit claim on the unit, and then that would claim it. So it's going to show up out here as a device that's available for us to communicate with. So that is how we would go in and claim that. Now, once we've claimed it, we could do things like we could say, hey, we're going to go through a proxy. Great. We could set up that proxy information that we need to get through the proxy out to the cloud. We would say, which port do we want to use for uploading our reports? Now, in this case, we're saying our wired port. I'm going to say my management port. Auto upload, auto test results. If I set this to on, every time I run an auto test, it will automatically upload those results. I don't have to do anything. So I could say I want to auto upload those results. Now, here's the cool thing. If you put a comment in there and we go back to Link Live and we create a folder, it will automatically upload that report to that folder. So this allows us to put the test results in folders specific to say a project that we're doing. And we can choose our report formats. This is for the auto upload. Now in this case, periodic auto test. We'll fire this up over the next break, but what this will do is this will automatically run the auto test for us on whatever period we set. So if I came in and I said, do this for 1 day, run it every 10 minutes, then when I launch this, every 10 minutes, it will run the auto test and upload the results. Run the auto test, upload the results. So if I think that there's some intermittent problem, this will help me address that. Down here, cloud remote is on. And so if I turn this off, well, let's see. I may lose connectivity, so I want to be careful with that. And then here's where I can give it a name. Okay, so these are our tools for managing our connection to Link Live. Let me come over here. We've got some questions that have come in. All right, so the question is, when you connect to Wi-Fi, it has to be an open SSID, right? No authentication SSID. Can you also test with authentication? So in this case, if I connect my management port, I can connect to a network with authentication. And if I connect my Wi-Fi port for doing Wi-Fi testing, I can use authentication as well, as long as I can give it a certificate or I can put in a passphrase. Would you be able to extract the report by connecting to the OneTouch AT via USB to the computer? What I would probably do in most cases is we can save it to an SD card. So we have, well, let's see, let's switch over to our equipment camera here. Over here on the side, we've got an SD card slot. So what I would probably do if I was going to do something like that is I would save it to the SD card, and then I would insert the SD card into my PC to transfer those files. One more here. Can the OneTouch AT assist in troubleshooting a network experiencing lost carrier due to broadcast? That one I'd have to look into. I'm not sure on that one. So on the Wi-Fi side, that we have so many broadcasts that we lose connection. I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit more. That would be great, and I should be able to come up with an answer for you. All right, so let's switch over here. There's our reports. So we've kind of gone through the reports. So let's take a look at our wired network discovery. So what happens when we do our discovery on our wired side? So we've gone in, we've run all these different tests. So now we want to be able to take a look at those test results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch profiles. If I click on Basic up here, this gives a list of all of the different profiles I have set up. Now in this case, I'm going to select Demo. Now one thing about it, if we see an asterisk or a star after the end of our profile name, it means that the profile has changed. So when I go to Load Demo, it's going to say, do you want to save Basic? I don't. So do I want to save the changes to Basic? No. So now it's going to load this demo database. I'm doing this just to so we can step through some examples. I can go ahead and hit Test. There's a little demo network that's built into, or demo database that's built into my OneTouch for training. So when we click on devices, it's going to break these into hosts infrastructure, servers, and problems, or on all devices. So if we go all the way over and we click on our problem or our devices over here, we're going to be able to sort on a number of different fields. So let's switch back here. Here's my 159 devices. So if I click on those devices, right here it takes me to all devices. And down here under my sort, it says most problems. So it says demo switch has the most problems. So it shows recent device reboot. So if I click on this, this tells me that this device has been rebooted recently. So that is an error message that comes up and tells us, somebody recently rebooted that. Now, if I click on it, I zoom in. If I click on it again, I zoom out. Now here's a case where I click on bad subnet mask. So this is telling me that this has an incorrect subnet mask on this device. I can zoom out. High CPU utilization. I can drill in. Tells me what the problem is there. Now I can change that sort. If I come down and click on sort, I can sort by name, IP address, IPv4, IPv6, MAC address by manufacturer, the full MAC address, cross-link discovery, device type, domain, top unicast. So there's a variety. I could say sort by IPv4. Whoops, too far. And in this case, it tells me I'm sorting by IPv4 address. So it really depends on what I'm looking for in here. Now we're going to go back. We're going to sort by problems. It's going to tell me those devices that have the most problems. So there's a list of our different sort features. Touching a device will expand the detail for that device. So in this case, we can see the address information. We can see the names associated with that device, such as the DNS name, the SNMP name. We can get some SNMP information. How long has it been up? Local frame statistics. How many frames has it sent? Now, as we start digging in there, we can start using the tools. And this is where we can use these tools to dig in even deeper into these devices. So in this case, from my tools menu, I can add a test. So I discover a server and I want to add a test for that server. I don't have to go back out and type in the IP address. I can just click in add test and it will take me to the add test screen. I can do a port scan. I can scan commonly used ports. I can do a path analysis. We're going to take a look at our path analysis, but the path analysis traces a path at layer 2. How does it do this? It goes out and it queries each of the switches that were discovered, pulls the bridge forwarding table off of those switches, and uses that to map out the network. We have a built-in web browser and a built-in Telnet and SSH client. So in this case, we are going to trace a path to this Aruba 3200, which is at 10.250.8.49. So let's do that. I'm going to come in and we are going to, let's see if it's listed in here. There it is. Okay, so in this case, I've got this Aruba 3200 device. I want to know what path I take through the network to get to this device. So I'm going to click on Tools. And I'm going to go to Path Analysis. So it tells me we go from the OneTouch to the demo switch, through an unknown switch, to the demo router, to the Aruba. Now if I click on demo switch, it tells me that I come in on port number 6 and I go out on port number 1. So if the OneTouch AT is able to communicate via SNMP with those switches along the path, it can get those bridge forwarding tables, and it can figure out what path we take at layer 2. We don't have to tug on cables. We don't have to go trace this out. It's going to show us this information. Now, at layer 3, this will trace a path through the network. And in fact, I'll show you how we can use this to identify where along the path a firewall is blocking our packets. Okay. So in this case, we were able to use that to trace that path. Now, as we drill into each device along that path, we can start getting an idea of what's going on. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to come in. I need to make a quick change here. I'm going to just drag this over here. All right. Okay. We're going to load our basic profile. While that's loading, all right, so here we've got this basic test set up. Okay, now I'm going to come in and add a quick little test here. I'm going to say connect TCP. I'm going to say server is secure.email.srvr.com. And we're going to check port 25. This is my mail server. I want to make sure that that's working. So in this case, we're going to come back out here. We're going to hit test. So it's going to test our local connections. Going to get a DHCP address, check DNS. It will check that, and we're going to check and make sure we can get to our email server. Now in this case, we failed the connection to our email server. So what the heck happened? Well, I click on that. And in this case, it said our ACK was lost. We did our DNS lookup. We got an answer. We came back. Says we sent our SYN, but we never got our SYN ACK. So I can go into Tools, and I can do a path analysis. Now, by default, it's going to do our path analysis using TCP port 80. And if we page down, it shows us the path we take through the internet. We see that we get out there on port 80. But you know what? I didn't use port 80. I used port 25. So let's run that again. I'm going to do my path analysis going out to my email server using port 25. And what we find out is that when we use the path analysis over port 25, we stop at our MikroTik router. So that's the router here at the office. Well, if I came in and took a look at that router, what I find out is I got a rule set up to block port 25. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to disable that rule. We're going to run that test again. So now I know what device was blocking it. I know where it was being blocked. So I go in, I change that setting, and I come in here and I see that it took me 22 hops, but I made it all the way out there to my email server. So what I would expect is that when I come back here and I rerun this test, that I will be able to successfully connect to that email server. So this is where I can use the path analysis to not only do my path analysis at layer 2 on my local network, but I can discover that I can do my path analysis at layer 3 all the way out to that server and find out where along the path that's being blocked. We'll plug the power in there. I just want to make sure I don't lose power on my OneTouch. So now we get a green check mark. That worked. We fixed it. So, one of the questions that came up was, how can we discover devices that are not on our local subnet? We can do things like our path analysis to take a look at what that path is going out there. But the OneTouch AT is designed to look at our local broadcast domain. So we can check connectivity to devices by setting up tests. But as far as doing discovery outside our local broadcast domain, the OneTouch AT is not going to do that. So if I wanted to be able to discover various networks, I need to move to that particular network to do that discovery. Okay. So in this case, we can do that path analysis and we can go out there. If we look at our hosts, this is going to give us our hosts. It's going to tell us the IP address, the manufacturer address. It's going to show us our little symbols here if we have any errors going on with that. And we can sort by those different devices. If we touch a host, we can drill into that host and get more information on it. If this host supports SNMP, we've put in the right SNMP information, we can go in and pull things like utilization information from that host. Access devices. These are going to be things like our switches and routers. So if we came back here, we clicked on the 45 devices we discovered here in the office. This shows me, if I go to access devices, here's things like my Netgear. Now this is a Netgear switch I have in the storeroom. Tells me how long it's been up. It's been up for 4 months. And if I go to tools, I can do things like go to multi-port stats. When I do that, this is going to come in and it's going to give me some information about that device. So it tells me, here are each of my interfaces. Here's how many devices we have on each one of those interfaces. So if I said, oh, what's on this interface right here? Well, it says there's one device there. So I can click on devices. Tells me that I've got my printer, my Brother black and white printers connected to that port. I can go back. I can start working my way back out of there. So for things like switches, I can go in and discover what's attached to that. If I click on my PoE switch, I could say tools. We could say multi-port stats. It's going to go out. It's going to enumerate all the interfaces on that switch. It's going to show me what interfaces we have out there. Now in this case, I see that this port right here is running at 7% utilization. So I could click on that and I could go to devices and there's my front door camera. So I've got a camera at the front door of the office and that thing, we're going out and communicating with that, and that's using up about 7% of the bandwidth on that port. So as we drill into a device, we can start getting more information about it. Some of the available tests: AT test, port scan, multi-port, etc. Here's our multi-port stats. We just took a look at that. Port details. So I could start drilling into a port and I could see, do I see discards? Do I see errors on that port? So if I have a port where I'm starting to see a lot of things like FCS errors, I could drill in here and start seeing which interfaces are seeing physical layer errors. If I see physical layer errors on there, I can start drilling in and seeing what devices are connected to that port. Okay. So in this case, this tells us devices. This shows us all the devices that are attached there. Our browser. So let's say we came out here to servers. And here's our tricks box. This is our PBX. So if I go to tools, let's say I'm out in the field. I'm using my OneTouch. I don't want to go back and get my laptop. I just need to make a quick change to this device, so I can click on Browse. And it's going to browse to the tricks box. It's going to use the wired port. It's going to present itself as a mobile browser, and we're not going to be using a proxy. So I'll hit launch. This will go out and start the built-in web browser in the OneTouch AT. It'll connect to that tricks box. So now I could come in here and start configuring that box. So I could go to Portal, and I could log in. I could click in this field. I could log in and I could start getting information. Let's say that I didn't want to use that. Instead, I needed to SSH in. So I could click on my Netmon box here, go to Tools, and click on Telnet SSH. So I'm going to say I'm going to connect into that. I'm going to use my wired port. I'm going to use port 22, use SSH. I could go ahead and put in a user. Put in the password. Now I'll say launch. So this is going to launch an SSH client and connect to that server. And there we go. And we're logged in. So I could go ahead and get some information about that, break out of that, and we could exit out. So would I want to use this all the time? No. But if I'm standing out there and I need to connect in real quick and make a change to a switch, a server, a router, something like that, this has those tools built into it. So we can use those tools in here to help us get some information, make some changes. Okay, on our servers, it's going to go in and identify things like our DHCP servers, DNS, web servers, file servers, domain controllers. As we drill into those servers, we're able to get more information in there. All right, so it's about 5 minutes after the hour. Let's go ahead and we're going to take one more quick break. Even though the timer is going to say 10 minutes, let's take about a 5-minute break. We still have a fair number of things to cover. I'm going to grab a voice over IP phone so that we can take a look at VoIP, and we're going to come back, and when we come back we're going to take a look at what we can do with wireless. So let's take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to start back up when the timer hits 5 minutes. So let's bring that up, put that over there, and we will be back in 5 minutes.